Yes, I guess we can go on and get started now. And as people are still joining the line, we'll add them in. Definitely appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to join this call. I know you really have some great nuggets. You always have, excuse me, some great perspectives on sales techniques and really how to do the T system and fully take advantage of this business. You're definitely one of the individuals that I look up to a lot. And you've been doing this for, oh, don't quote me, but I think it's like what, years now. So
How
definitely
many years?
well, over 20.
Yeah.
Yep. See, there we go. Over 20 years. All right. Without further ado, guys, get your pen and papers ready. We're going to listen to Mr. Greg Hinton. Turning the call over to you, sir.
Okay. Thanks for a wonderful introduction. I'll start off by saying if this was not the best final expense opportunity around, I would not still be here. This is the best opportunity as long as you plug in and work the system. Because if it was not the best opportunity, trust me, I'd be somewhere else by now. But there's no
recording in progress.
We got everything in place. And yeah, okay, good. So I'm just going to share a few little things here. Maybe we can have a question and answer session at the end. But I'm just going to cover a few brief things that might be helpful to somebody. When you're making a sale, and it doesn't matter if it's telesales or face-to-face, you've had your warm-up, you've had your conversation, you've shown the rates, Miss Betty picks one of the plans, and you start completing the Slice app. And you get to that point where it's time to get the banking information, name of the bank, routing number, account number, initial withdrawal date, future draft date, et cetera, et cetera. At this point, a lot of agents, especially new agents, I know I was like this, you get excited and you try to not show your enthusiasm. You try to act normal and calm about it. But inside, fireworks are going off. You're excited. And at this point in time, a lot of agents, they get kind of weak. And by that, I mean they're afraid to say anything that might get Miss Jones upset with them. Because they're afraid it might say something that makes Miss Jones mad. And it'll say something like, no, I'm not going to take the plan out after all. And that just never happens. And what I was going to say is, when it comes time to get the initial draft date, we always want that to be as soon as possible, because that means we get paid as soon as possible. If the initial draft date is the 3rd of next month, we don't get paid till 3 days after the 3rd of next month, and that's not good. So just remember this, and I'll tell you what to say in just a minute, but if you ask Miss Betty, when do you want to start this? And that's what a lot of agents say when they get to that part for the initial withdrawal date. They'll say, Miss Betty, when do you want to start this? And 99% of the time, if not 100% of the time, Miss Betty's going to say the 1st of next month. Even if I'm talking to her on the 4th day of the month, and she just got her check yesterday on the 3rd, if I ask her on the 4th, when do you want to start this? She doesn't say start it as soon as you can. Almost every single time they'll say, oh, the 1st of next month will be good. And that's just a habit. But we don't want her to say the 1st of next month. So the best way to avoid that is don't ask her, just tell her. Through the whole conversation, we've been kind of in charge a little bit in a gentle fashion, but we've been the one in control, basically, asking the questions, answering questions, initiating the conversation, and guiding it along the path, which is our sales presentation. So when you get to that point of the Slice app where you pick the initial withdrawal date, just casually say, Miss Betty, they'll send this to the bank tomorrow night. That's what everybody else is doing. And, when you say that's what everybody else is doing, it makes it much easier for Miss Betty to fall in line, because if everybody else is doing it, it must be okay. Miss Jones is always kind of afraid she's going to make a mistake because she doesn't buy insurance every week. She doesn't even buy it every year. So when we're talking to her, we've got to be very careful that we don't get her nervous and fearful and et cetera. So when it's the initial draft day, I say, Miss Betty, I tell her. I don't ask her if it's okay. I don't do that. I just say, Miss Betty, they're going to send this to your bank tomorrow night. That's what everybody else is doing this week. Or if I'm talking to her on a Monday, I'll say, they're going to send this to your bank tomorrow night. That's what everybody else is doing. Not saying that's what everybody's doing this week. I'll say this week later on in the week. Miss Betty, they're going to send this to your bank tomorrow night. That's what everybody else is doing. And then carry on to the very next step of your slice app. Now, occasionally, Miss Betty might say, well, I don't have the money in there right now. And I'm going to be very casual and calm. I'll say, that's no problem. Can you get it in there in the next 3 or 4 days? Or if I'm talking to her, say on a Tuesday, I might say, that's okay. Can you get it in there this Friday? If you ask them that question, you'd be surprised at the number of people say, yeah, I can do that. And the reason they can say, yeah, I can do this, because they usually withdraw pretty much all the money out of the bank and they just keep it at home in cash, under a mattress sometimes, in a hiding place sometimes. So ask them, can you get it in there this Friday? If you don't ask them, the answer is nobody will get it in this Friday. So ask them. The ones that can get it in this Friday, if they say, yeah, I can do that, I say, great, we'll just set it up to go to your bank next Monday then. But if you ask them, can you get it in there this Friday? And they say, no, I can't. I got to wait till the 3rd. You'll probably hear that more often after the 20th of the month. Say it's the 21st of the month and Miss Betty's picked a plan and, we're on the bank page and I've sliced and I say, Miss Betty, they're going to send this to your bank tomorrow night. That's what everybody else is doing. And she said, oh, I don't have the money in the bank right now. No problem. Can you get it in there this Friday? And she says, yes, we'll just have it sent to the bank on Monday for you. But she says, no, I can't get it in there this Friday. I've got to wait till I get my check on the 3rd. I'm going to say, no problem, Miss Betty. We can handle that for you. Because I don't want to butt heads with her over this issue. But I'm going to steer her around that in just a few minutes. But I don't want to butt heads with her because then she's going to get defensive and things just fall apart at that stage. So I'll just say, no problem. We can do it on the 3rd for you. And then let's pretend like it's the 21st day of the month. And I tell her we're going to send it to the bank tomorrow night. She says, I got to wait till the 3rd, yada, yada, yada. No problem, Miss Betty. We can wait till the 3rd. Hey, by the way, I just noticed something. Would you like me to show you how you can get about a week and a half of this for free? And when you ask that question, they always say yes. They never say no. By the way, Miss Betty, would you like for me to show you how you can get about a week and a half of this for free? Pause, don't say anything. She's going to say yes. And I'm going to say, well, it doesn't always work out this way. But one of the great things about these state regulated plans is they never bill you twice in a 25-day period. And because the day's the 21st, and you like the 3rd to be your due date each month, if there's some way that we can go ahead and send this to the bank in the next couple of days, if we can just do that, Miss Betty, payment number 2 is not going to be July the 3rd, because that's just a week and a half away. That's too soon. They skip right over July the 3rd. So payment number 2 is not July the 3rd. It's actually going to be August the 3rd. This way, and I take my time explaining so she can understand what I'm saying. And I hope y'all understand what I'm saying. I might be confusing, but I'll just say, Miss Betty, this way you can get about a week and a half for free. Plus, if something unexpected happens, we've already got your coverage in place and your savings with legacy in place. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? And they're either going to say yes or no. If they say yes, boom. We're going to set it up for about 3 days later. The 24th is going to be the initial draft date. That means I can get paid about a week and a half earlier. And that means her policy starts a week and a half earlier. But if she, as the last result, said, no, I would love to do that. I just don't have the money. I got to wait till the 3rd. Then that's the default position. Okay, we'll do it on the 3rd. And I know that I don't get paid till a few days after the 3rd. Or if it's a face-to-face, I'll get paid the evening of the 3rd. So that's kind of what you can say to try to encourage Miss Jones not to wait. Because, when it comes to buying insurance, pretty much everybody procrastinates. Nobody's really motivated to buy insurance, really. So we have to kind of encourage her and nudge her along And that'll work sometimes, and sometimes it don't. Well, if it don't work, no big deal. We just draft on the third, and I get paid around that time. But if I can get her to draft a week earlier, half a week earlier, I'm getting paid a week quicker or half a week quicker. And, when you first start out, your money may be tight. Sometimes that can be very helpful with your personal cash flow. So that's just an idea. Sometimes people have a credit card to make their payments. Maybe they have Direct Express because they don't have a bank account. Well, if it's Direct Express, for example, we get paid as earned. We don't get advance. We get paid as earned, and the commissions are a little bit lower. Well, why is that? Well, people with Direct Express cards, they're great human beings, but they're not very good when it comes to handling money. And the reason most people have Direct Express cards is if they try to open up a bank account, the bank will not let them open up an account because all the banks are connected, some kind of network, kind of like credit bureaus, where if someone applies to open up an account, they can look somewhere online to see if this person had accounts at other banks, overdrew the accounts and never made it good. If you overdraw a checking account and never make it good, that bank's got to eat the cost of it. So, a long time ago, Social Security checks were mailed to everybody years ago. But, after a period of time, the government started realizing we're spending a lot of money on postage every month on the third. Plus, you got some people that claim their check was stolen out of their mailbox on the third. And the government said, well, let's just put everything on bank draft. Or bank direct deposit, rather, on the banking account, checking or savings account. So they sent everybody a notice that's on Social Security and was getting ready to get on Social Security, a notice that, hey, sometime down the road, like maybe 12 months, in the 12 months from now, we're going to be setting everybody up on bank draft. Go ahead and get everything set up. You got 12 months to get ready for it. Go get your bank account set up. Go ahead and get used to it, yada, yada, yada. Well, some people went to the bank and they could not open up a bank account. They went to another bank, could not open up a bank account. And none of the banks wanted to accept that person as a customer because that person had a reputation or there was documentation. I don't know the specifics, but the banks would know that that person had overdrawn bank accounts at other banks. And this bank right here says, we don't want that risk. So they won't open up an account for that person. So the government had to come up with a solution for that. So they developed the plastic Direct Express cards. Looks like a credit card because Direct Express. That way they could direct deposit the Social Security on the card. If they could not direct deposit in someone's bank, they could always direct deposit in the card on the card. And that still helped them not pay all the postage and prevent people saying someone stole the check out of their mailbox. So, when someone's on Direct Express, it's usually because they just don't handle money good, and that's okay. A lot of people have that situation. So when you are getting a card, it's always good to say, Miss Betty, had you rather pay this every 12 months or every 6 months? And hush up, and don't be scared to ask them that question. If you ask 100 people that question, there might be 5 or 8 or 10 people that says, yeah, I didn't know I could do that. And you say, of course, which one do you like, 6 months or 12 months? When you do that, that protects your persistency because if they pay by Direct Express once a month, it may fall off the books in 2 or 3 months. Happens a lot, it just does. But if they pay 6 months or 12 months, well, you're getting 6 months commission or 12 months commission rather than 2 or 3 months commission before it falls off the books. And that's just the nature of Direct Express business. That's why we don't get advanced on it. And that's why some carriers out there, other final expense carriers, do not even accept Direct Express. But the few that do, they do just like Senior Life. They pay you as earned in a smaller commission rate. Otherwise, they just can't make a profit because they advance you $200 or $300 and the business lapses 2 months later. They go in the hole in that one policy. And when you multiply that by thousands of policies, it's not good. So when someone's going to pay you with a card, especially Direct Express, just smile, whether it's on the phone, doing telesales or face-to-face. Just say, Miss Betty, You rather do this once every 12 months or pay it once every 6 months? And ask it like it's no big deal. Every once in a while, they're going to say, well, I can't do 12 months. I think I can do 6 months. And I'm going to set them up for 6 months semi-annual. Because it'll help you make more money in the long run. It just helps your persistency. Of course, if they've got an ATM card, a plastic card that goes to a checking account, then you want to nurture that a little bit and see if you cannot get the actual account number, because that way you can get advanced. If you use the ATM card, it's going to be paid as earned. And, I'm sure everybody on this call prefers to be, advanced rather than just paid as earned. I know I do. I've been advanced the whole time. I like that. But, if there's someone with Direct Express, ask them, would you want to pay this every 6 months or every 12 months, and see what they say. If they say, I can't afford to do it every 6 months or 12 months, say, no problem. We'll just do like everybody else does. We'll just let your card take care of it once a month for you. And then you're back to, you don't lose anything, but you can gain a little bit. They say, oh, I'll do it every 12 months or every 6 months. So that'll help your commissions a little bit. And when you're talking to the people, you got to be an actor. Telesales, face-to-face makes no difference. You got to be somewhat of an actor. You got to put a little sense. You got to be sincere. You got to have some emotions. You got to have some enthusiasm. But you don't want so much of that emotions or enthusiasm that you come across as a phony. You want to sound believable, genuine. You got to remember, senior citizens, when you're talking to Miss Joe and she's 72 years old, can you imagine how many salespeople she's talked to in her lifetime? Not just insurance related, but anything. And she kind of gets a sixth sense if someone's being a phony with her. It just comes from old age, experience, and wisdom. So just be honest with the people. Be genuine. Get them to laugh a little bit. Cut up a little bit. Don't be so stiff and scared to talk a little bit and smile with them. Get them to laugh a little bit. That's good. That gets them warmed up with you. I always tell people, don't sound like an insurance agent. Instead, sound like the next door neighbor having a cup of coffee. We're talking about the high cost of funerals and how in the world can my children pay for it? They can barely pay their bills as it is. What are they going to do? That's kind of the atmosphere of your conversation. You want to sound like a consultant. You don't want to sound like a salesperson. That's not good. Maybe that was good 20 or 30 years ago, but it's not good now. So, in the early stages of your conversation, when you're kind of warming up, that's when you kind of get some pieces of information that you might need during the closing phase. And you just say, by the way, Miss Betty, are you planning on being cremated or buried? And just hush. They'll usually say cremation or they'll usually say buried. Once in a while, they're going to say something along the lines of, I don't really know. But if they say they're going to be cremated, I'm going to use that down the road when we get to the closing stage. When I talk about legacy, I'm not going to focus that much on the caskets being locked in at $2,000 because it doesn't really concern Miss Betty. She don't care if she's really going to be cremated, if that's what she told me. I'll focus on the wish team, how they price negotiate. I focus on the living benefits like the 24-hour telehealth, discounts on hearing aids, one free hearing exam every 12 months, discounts on diabetic supplies, telehealth. And I take my time explaining that. Of course, if she's going to be buried, I focus in on that casket too. And when you talk to Miss Betty, I think it'd be wise to let the casket, not the casket, but let legacy be a big part of your conversation, because that's what separates us from the other final expense carriers pretty much is our legacy. Not only do we negotiate the price, but the merchandise is marked down considerably. I explained to Miss Betty that a casket at the funeral home could be $5,000 or $6,000. And with her legacy membership, which comes automatically with the policy, I don't ask her, do you want legacy? I always tell them it comes with the policy. Your casket's locked in at $2,000. when they say locked in, Miss Betty, that means it never ever goes up. It doesn't matter if you live to be 150. Doesn't matter if your health goes bad. Everything is locked in place. And it stays a flat $200 $2,000 for the rest of your life. And I explained to her and illustrated her like, that's going to save your family about $3,000 just on the casket alone. And that's at today's prices. 5 or 10 years from now, the casket with legacy is still going to be locked in $2,000. But over at the funeral home, if it's $5,000 today, in 10 years, it might be $7,000 or $8,000. But here with legacy, it's locked in at $2,000. Then it's going to be saving your family $6,000 or $7,000. And I illustrate all this stuff real carefully. I explain to 4 family members. There's no age restrictions, no health restrictions. If they qualify for a modified or guaranteed issue plan with a waiting period, I remind them that the legacy savings start on day 1. There's no waiting period on the legacy savings. There's just a waiting period on the insurance check. And, if I talk to someone about modified or guaranteed issue, I explain to them if they die a natural death, you don't lose any money. You get all your money back, and the insurance company adds 10% interest to it. Miss Betty, if you try to save this money in the bank, you might get, 2 or 3%, who knows, somewhere in that area. But with this, insurance companies always pay higher interest than the banks. They pay you 10% interest. So I really focus on that. And if this modified or guaranteed issue, I focus on the immediate coverage for accidental death, and it pays double. And I illustrate what does accidental death mean. I say, any kind of accident, drowning, getting killed in a car wreck, I illustrate it. I don't just say accidental death. I try to make something so they can visualize it. Because if they're visualizing different things, whether it's a car wreck or someone crying at their funeral because they never took care of this, I can paint mental pictures along the way. That's going to help me make the sale. And face it, that's the only reason I'm talking to Miss Jones. She's a nice lady, but I'm there to make a sale, period. That's why I bought the lead. I'm not there just to have a conversation, but I do enjoy the conversation. And sometimes if I'm in the right frame of mind, if she's not picking a plan that easily, sometimes I enjoy the challenge. I think to myself, well, we're going to see what happens. And I'm going to stay there for 15 or 25 more minutes, gently talking about this and that. Because sometimes when you talk to them another 10, 15, or 20 minutes, not very direct, but kind of roundabout way, sometimes they're like an ice cube and they melt down. They say, okay, I think I like that first plan. Or okay, you're right, I really do need to do this. Something like that. I don't work leads that often. I may start back because everybody's snap, crackling, and popping with these live transfers. But, I went and I did a multi-source lead a while back, a couple of weeks ago. In fact, I've done 2 in the last 2 weeks. They both gave me objections. I was face-to-face. They were right here in Raleigh. It wasn't telesales. I didn't call for an appointment. I went door knocked because they were close enough to do that. And I know the last guy, they both ended up being sales, but each one of them gave me an objection in the middle. First one, the oldest one, about 2 weeks ago, she said, I need to talk to my children. And this was when we got partway through the presentation. She said, I need to talk to my children. So I did what we're supposed to. I acknowledged the objection. I recognized the objection, sympathized with her, and then I pushed that objection right out of the way and kept on talking. I said, talking to your children, I think that's a great idea. Makes a lot of sense. Let me get a little more information here from my records, and then I just picked right back up where I left off a minute earlier on slides, continue filling in the app, got down to the rates. They picked a plan. That's the only time they gave me the objection was about midway through the presentation, like, I need to talk to my children about this. And I agreed. I said, hey, I understand. That's a good idea. It makes a lot of sense. Let me get a little more information here from my records. I didn't ask her if I could get it. I told her, I said, let me get a little more information from my records. So I started completing the rest of the Slice app, got to the plans, or got to the rates. I asked her which rate which one of these plans did you want to leave to your daughter? Because I think the daughter was going to be the primary beneficiary. from the warm up I had in the early stages. They picked a plan. Everything was fine. They signed the ad, and everything's fine, no problem. They didn't really need to talk. What it means is they didn't really need to talk to their children. That was just something they just threw out there. It was a bunch of BS. They threw it out there because it was probably a reflex. You know, I've used this example too. If I go to the mall to buy a shirt, I hate shopping for the most part. But I'm there to buy a shirt, a dress shirt. And as I'm looking through the shirts for my size and whatever, the salesperson walks up and says, "Can I help you, sir?" The first thing out of my mouth without even a thought is, "No thanks, I'm just looking." It's a reflex. I don't even think about it. It just comes out. "No thanks, I'm just looking." And into the untrained salesperson, they think, "I'm not going to buy anything. I'm just killing time looking." And that salesperson is wrong. I'm not there just looking window shopping. I'm there to buy a shirt. That's the only reason I went to that store, was I am going to buy a shirt. I am a red hot buyer. I'm a lay down, but I don't sound like a lay down. That's like the example I was just talking about, where I've got to talk to my children about this. "Hey, that's no problem. Sounds like a good idea. Let me get a little more." I knew that was a reflex, or at least I thought that was a reflex. And you never really know 100% certainty, but based on experience, this is just someone saying something. They don't really mean it. The only way I know that they really mean it, if I hear I need to talk to my children 3 or 4 times and no other objections, then I know that is a hot button. That's going to be the obstacle. But if they say I got to talk to my children 2 or 3 minutes later, I can't afford it. 2 or 3 minutes later, I need to look around. You know, none of those are the correct objections, because they're bouncing around from one objection to the next. So none of those are the real deal. And then you can say something. I heard Rob say this a few years ago, stuck with me because I thought it was pretty good. "Miss Betty, in addition to the money, what else do you have on your mind?" And that'll help flush out the real objection. She's probably going to say it's the money. But she might just say something else like, "Well, my daughter pays all my bills." And if she says that, then I know, we got to talk to the daughter now. I don't like that added hurdle, but that's what we got to do. But when you hear those objections, you know, you address them. Don't ignore them. Just say, "Hey, I understand. I feel the same way. But hey, that's a great idea." And then after you acknowledge the objection, carry on with your conversation in the same way, same speed of delivery, as if you never even heard the objection. Knowing in the back of your mind, that's probably just one of them reflexes that comes out without even thinking, because that's usually what it is. And then sometimes, you know, no matter what you say, they're not going to buy. It don't matter who's talking to them. They're just not going to buy. And when you work 20 leads a week, we'll use 20 as an example, over half of them don't buy. If you work 40 leads a week, over half of them don't buy. If you work 60 leads a week, over half of them don't buy. If you work 100,000 leads in a year, over half of them don't buy. But the key is, the more leads you work, you get more conversations in, more presentations in. And the more leads you work, because you get more conversations, you will get more yeses, and you'll get more no's. You'll get more mean people. You get more nice people. You get more, "Let me think about it, call me next month" people. You'll get more, "Let me talk to my children" people. You get more of everything, but everything's in the same ratio. You know, if you average 5 sales for 20 leads, that means you'll average 15 sales if you do 60 leads. Because 60 leads is 3 times as many leads as 20, and 15 sales is 3 times as many sales as 5. If you get 5 out of 20, that means you get 10 out of 40, 15 out of 60. It's just a numbers game, really. There's no magic recipes. You know, when I first got started, I thought everybody was supposed to buy, because I knew I was doing a world-class presentation. I didn't shortcut anything. And I took pride on my closing percentages. But when people didn't buy, I'd call my manager up, Mike Harper. He's retired now, sharp. And I'd say, "Mike, you know, this is what happened at presentation. I don't know what I did wrong." And we talked about it for a few moments. He said, "Greg, don't let it bother you." He says, "Over half of them are not going to buy anyway. It doesn't matter if one of the top 5 agents in the nation, if you look at their closing percent over the course of the last year, when they earned the rank of top 5 at the National Awards Banquet, over half of their leads didn't buy either. Now, some days it seems like everybody's buying. Some weeks it seems like everybody's buying. Some days it seems like nobody's buying. And some weeks it seems like nobody's buying. You got cold streaks, hot streaks, and a lot of the time you got 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 buying. But the law of large numbers is what matters in the long run. You cannot work 5 leads just to see if they're any good. That ain't gonna cut it. Or let me work 5 leads to see if they're any good. That ain't gonna cut it. You got to have the law of large numbers. That's like saying, let me flip a quarter 4 times and see if it lands on heads 2 times and tails on the other 2 times. Robert, I see you say you got a lead, man. Have a great evening. Thank you for being here. You got to have a large sample size. You can't just say, let me work 5 leads and see if they're going to work out or not, how good they are. You need to work 20 or 200 or 2,000 or 20,000 to get a true picture of the averages. For example, if you work 20 leads, and let's say you average 5 sales per 20 leads on average, it could mean your first 15 leads all are no's, and the last 5 leads are the yeses. That's still 5 sales out of 20 leads, but it's just painful because the first 15 were all no's. And when you get to that 7th or 8th or 9th no in a row, you might say these leads are terrible, but the leads are fine. You just got to let the law of large numbers come to the surface. Same leads everybody else in the country works. Doesn't matter if you work in telesales TV leads, telesales multi-source leads, face-to-face direct mail leads, even face-to-face TV leads. Everybody works the same leads. There ain't no magic. It's just some people will work more leads than others because they're more ambitious. They like making the money. They like the thrill of outriding somebody else. They like the challenge, the competition, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's some people that are just lazy. Simple as that. They're just lazy. And, like Ron Powell says, if you don't invest in leads, I can't help you. I mean, we can give you all the training in the world, the best training in the world. But if you don't get leads and put it into action, nothing happens. You're still sitting on the sidelines watching everybody else make money, and you're going broke and starving and wondering what's wrong with you. You got to be brave. Buying leads, and it's not really buying leads, it's investing in leads. And the reason I say investing is there's not many places you can go invest $800 in leads for 1 week. Invest $800 and get triple your money back in 2 or 3 weeks or sooner. It's just not, it's hard to, I don't know any other place you can go invest $800 and get double, triple, or even sometimes quadruple your money back in 2 or 3 weeks, if not sooner. That's a great investment. That's a lot better than investing in gold and 401s, IRAs. You don't get those kind of stocks and bonds. You don't get those kind of returns like you do when you invest in leads. And then on top of that, the IRS lets us declare the lead charge as a tax-deductible expense. We can invest in leads, get double or triple our money back, and then we get to also declare the leads as a tax deduction on our taxes. It don't get no better than that. And you got to remember, without leads, you don't have a lot of people to talk to. You can talk to your family and a few acquaintances or friends or neighbors, and yeah, you might scratch out 1 or 2, maybe 3 applications, but that ain't no money. Now, if you want to make a career with this and writing 5 or 6 or 7 apps a week steadily, you need leads. It'd be nice if we did not have to have leads, but we need leads to sell final expense insurance. That Burger King franchisee, he or she, they need hamburger buns so they can sell hamburgers. Simple as that. And we need, we're lucky. Our business, and this is a business, requires very little startup capital. We don't have to invest in a building or signs or remodeling or paving a parking lot or expensive equipment.
Hey, we lost you, Greg.
There we go. I'm not sure how I got muted. I'm not sure where we left off, so I'll back up a little bit. This business of ours is great. We don't need a lot of startup capital. You know, if you're doing face-to-face sales, all you need is leads in a car. You're doing telesales, all you need is leads and a smartphone and either iPad, laptop, or desktop. We don't need to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. Everything is pretty much what we already have anyway in our everyday life. All you got to do is talk to the people. And if you're new and you feel a little ragged when you're talking to Miss Jones, relax. Don't worry. She does not know what you're supposed to be saying anyway. So just relax. And remember, the more presentations you have, the more comfortable you get with it, the more confident you get with it, and the better you get with it. You know, if it just comes with a little bit of practice, but still, if you're brand new, you can go out and make $1,000 your first week if you invest in leads and put in the grind to catch up with the leads. It's simple. I mean, I say it's simple because all we do is we talk to people and we have the same conversation with one lead after another, same conversation, high cost of death, how's the family going to take care of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all I wanted to say. Basically, I didn't want to run the call over too late. If I guess we can open up the floor for any questions and answers. If anybody has a question, throw it out there and let's talk about it. Okay. Fine with me. Glad everybody. Yes.
Hey, Greg, can you repeat the when Miss Betty was saving, well, she was getting insurance for a week and how they skipped the payment? Can you repeat that for me, please?
Okay. Let's pretend like it's the 20th of the month. And Miss Jones has picked a plan. I'm writing her up on slides. I'm feeling good. I'm trying to contain my excitement, try to be normal. And I get to that part about the banking information, the name of the bank, routing, account number, initial withdrawal date, and so forth. What I say is, and I did not say this earlier, but what I say is, Miss Betty, what's the name of the bank you want them to send this to get started? I never say, what's the name of the bank we're supposed to take this out of? Because if they hear you say, take this out, take this money out of my account, some people, not many, but some of them get defensive. They start backpedaling, and then they start saying, you know, let me talk to my daughter first. Because they get nervous when you say, take it out of your bank. So I always say, what's the name of the bank that they should send this to get it started for you? That's all I say. And they might say, well, the Bank of America. I'll say, great. Is that checking or savings? And then we come to the initial withdrawal, and I'll get the account number. That's a different conversation. And then I'll say, now, Miss Betty, today's the 21st. They'll go ahead and send it to your bank tomorrow night so we can get everything started for you. Miss Betty says, okay, wonderful. If she says, on the other hand, I don't have the money in there right now, I'm not going to get upset. I'm going to say, that's no problem. Can you get the money in there this Friday? Or can you get the money in there in the next 2 or 3 days? If she says yes, great. I'll just set the initial withdrawal date maybe 4 days later when we're sure she got the money in case she was running late one day. But if I say, can you get the money in there in the next few days? If she says, no, I won't have the money until the 3rd, I'm not going to argue. I'm saying, no problem. We can take care of that for you, Miss Betty. And I pause for just a second. And then I say, oh, by the way, I just noticed something. Would you like for me to show you how you can get about a week and a half of this for free? And hush up. They'll always say yes. And I say, well, it doesn't always work out this way, Miss Betty. And I say it this way to make it special for her, but it's also the truth. It doesn't always work out this way, Miss Betty. But, you know, they never bill you twice in a 25-day period. And because today's the 21st, and you like the 3rd to be your date each month, is there some way we can start this in the next 2 or 3 days? The good news is payment number 2 is not going to be July the 3rd because that's just a week and a half later. It's too soon. They're not going to be again. they skip right over July the 3rd. So payment number 2 won't be till August the 3rd. Say it so they can really understand what I'm saying, because sometimes they don't have to repeat it. And when if they understand it, I was kind of light up, and I'll say, sounds good, doesn't it? And they'll say, yeah, I like that. I said, fine, we'll just have it sent to your bank. Not tomorrow night, but the day after tomorrow. How's that sound? Because a lot of times they do have the money in the bank. They're just out of habit, not wanting to part with it until they get their next check on the 3rd. Did that answer your questions?
Yes, I like that. Thank you.
I like it too, because it works sometimes. It don't work all the time, but when it does work, you feel good, and it helps your personal cash flow quite a bit sometimes.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have a question or problem they have with a Miss Jones or anything? Yada yada yada. Okay, well, I appreciate everybody being on the call tonight. Hope it helped a few people. Remember, leads is a magic recipe. If you're wondering what's the secret to writing all the business? Leads and hard work. That's all it takes. All right, y'all have a great day, great evening. Thanks for attending. See you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Hinton.